Hey, what's up guys, aarava here and welcome back to another video of my Let's Talk F1 series here for the 2019 F1 car launches. We did McLaren earlier in the day, and right now we're looking through the Alfa Romeo Racing 2019 Challenger, which hasn't officially even been launched yet. The official launch is on Monday at Barcelona at the start of pre-season testing, but they did a shakedown today on Valentine's Day in a special one-off Valentine's themed livery with a lot of hearts and the Alfa Romeo 4-clover logo plastered all over it in red outline on a black base there, and well, the car itself looks very intriguing. The livery alone is an interesting, very nice concept anyway on the day on Valentine's Day, but the car itself, aerodynamically speaking, looks very intriguing, very different to what they had last year, and you can see that step forward maybe they're going to make for this year with the prize money finally from the previous 2 years it is, because obviously they get paid 1 year after for the prize money, and also the backing of Alfa Romeo properly now in a kind of even grander way, because obviously they're now called the Alfa Romeo Racing Team. So it's going to be very intriguing to see what the car looks like in the flesh, in the actual colours itself on Monday. And if you actually guys didn't know, I community posted it a while back on my channel, but I'm actually going to Barcelona. I've been invited out, thankfully, by the Alfa Romeo Racing Team to see the car in person, in the flesh. So that's going to be pretty damn cool. There will be a vlog of my little trip there for 1 day on Monday to see the car being unveiled for the first time fully in its new colours. But let's look through it aerodynamically then in this shakedown and look through the 2019 Challenger, because that's the only thing that's going to change is the paid scheme. Everything else I'm guessing, will be the same once they launch at Barcelona and go into pre-season testing. Obviously, they and every team does have the opportunity to change their car towards Melbourne, but this pretty much is the car they're going to be running at the very start of the testing session. So we look at a front view of the car then, and let's start off with the nose area, which is intriguing to say the least. Very much kind of almost a copycat of the McLaren style nose, because McLaren debuted this three-pronged hole nose at Barcelona at the Spanish Grand Prix last year. They've stuck with that kind of philosophy. Sauber did have two nostrils on their nose last year, but they kind of merged it to very much look like a bit of a more McLaren style configuration there, with the three holes either being involved in passing through air and squirting air through to underneath the nose cone itself, or through the nose itself, perhaps through the S duct, because the S duct is absolutely massive for the Alfa Romeo team this year. It's huge. I mean, literally, it's sectioned off, and it's pretty much the entirety of that face, pretty much. So I don't know if there's another inlet on the side. There perhaps is, but I'm guessing there will be a little bit of air, maybe, if there's no inlet on the sides, which I can't see. I would guess these inlets at the front will be directly feeding that S duct, trying to take air from the bottom, injecting it on the top of the chassis, which induces that injection of fresh air, basically, effectively, compared to the air that's turbulent already around it. That injection of air encourages mixing at the very top and allows the air to keep attached to the bottom, which is important, especially even more so with the halo these days. But yeah, peculiar and very different nose to one they had last year, and then even more peculiar. Let's stop beating around the bush. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. This very funky front wing for Alfa Romeo. It's a front wing I've not seen ever like this. It's like a split front wing. So they've got their main plane, which goes across, because obviously the front wing rules dictate the wing has to be at this width, basically the edge of the tyre this year. So the main plane ticks that box. They've got a pretty plain end plate, which obviously is, again, within the 2019 regulations. They have to have a very plain end plate. But then there's obviously, I don't think, anything in the rules that doesn't say the flaps over to the top of the main plane have to extend the entire width. You know, the front wing width has to be at this width, but the main plane ticks that box, and the flaps are just devices put on top of the main plane to add aerodynamics and flow control to the front wing. So I guess they've interpreted the rules as they're not allowed to, they don't need to, cover the entire thing. There are some flaps here, because there's you can see it a little bit better maybe on this side here with the lighting. But there is 1 or 2 flaps connecting this main part to the rest of the main plane. So there is still a bit of aerodynamic work going on here, but they've chosen to basically cut off most of the flaps here at the inside face, or not even at the inside face, kind of halfway through the inside face of the tyre, and then really, slant the flaps upwards, basically, get a lot of height on the flaps themselves before curling back in. So you're going to see a lot of good vortices being made on this inside channel towards the barge area, the Sidepod. So quite an innovative kind of approach approach to the front wing. We actually heard reports that Alfa Romeo were going to come through with a very different shape car to many others, and be very creative with it, and this is the solution then. Obviously, I don't know if this will change for pre-season. It could change massively if they don't see the real world, data match the simulations they've got in their CFD, simulations, but there's obviously a reason they've done this, and it's worked out for them in the simulations. Obviously, they'll see how it is in real life, but yeah, I mean, top draws to the Alfa Romeo team for being this creative with their front wing solution. It looks very, very odd and very peculiar, but that's kind of cool. It's very unique, that you're going to recognize the Alfa Romeo car straight away just off the nose cone, and the very odd front wing and the skinniness of the front wing on the kind of outer edges, if you will. And this is peculiar because this area of the car, this very width here, was the focal point of the front wing development in the last few years. This is where all the flaps would start to have that arching effect, where they'll try to literally turn the air around the outside of the tire, trying to make the vortex that naturally occurs anyway on this part, on the outside face of the tire. It naturally forms anyway with a rotating tire through air, but they try to strengthen that and turn the air around it to try and mix up the air and try and clean it up as it went downstream, and try and clean up the rotating turbulent forces off the front tires. So ironic in a way that used to be the focal point, and now a team like Alfa Romeo has pretty much just forgotten about that part. They're going to let air pretty much just flow right through there unobstructed, and I guess, because it doesn't really matter anymore, because no teams can do much about that area of the car anymore, because it's all been regulationed off basically by the FIA. So pretty clever in a way, maybe to save themselves some kind of headache, I guess, on that part of the front wing. They don't deal with it anymore. So yeah, very creative solution there. If we move through to the bar joint areas, that's gotten a bit more intricate for Alfa Romeo here, as you got 3 different streaks and slots in the main bar joint, and then you got a little winglet coming off there to attach through. So that's just an evolution of last year, getting a bit more complicated as they try and get a bit more complex as a team, as a whole, obviously. And then the side pods themselves are intriguing to look at. Very much a blend between a Red Bull / Ferrari kind of side pod inlet and end plate to the side pod kind of arrangement here. You've got the very small and high up inlets that many teams, barring Mercedes and McLaren in a way, have kind of gone away from. McLaren do have quite high up side pods, you would have seen in the video earlier today, but they're still quite large compared to other teams like Red Bull, for example, there. But Sauber going for that very small inlet at the top there. Then there's Red Bull style overarching wing that comes out, but it's not so much of a winglet that's very separate. It's actually kind of part of the top face, really, and just sticks out right at the top with a bit of an up flick here, which creates a bit of an end plate kind of scenario to create tip vortices coming off downstream and spiraling out downstream. And then you've got the 2-prong mirror attachment, which is very much a case of most teams there. Again, you can see this upright basically across is going to act like another bit of aerodynamic device to positively try and mix the air at the very top of the side pod. And then they've got a second connection there that connects onto the side pod face, and from a side profile you can see it's very much shaped like a vortex generator, just to create a bit more mixing of the air. And the wing mirrors themselves placed strategically, obviously just the edge of the corner of the side pod there. And then you got right at the top, now this is to do more with the engine, not aero really, so this is not my area of expertise, but they've got 4 different inlets on the very top there, which is very unique to most of the teams. So I suspect that's maybe splitting the airways for compartments of the engine, perhaps to different parts that need to be cooled separately, or a bit more efficiently way of cooling them in this kind of regard, or just getting more air ready from the very top, and rather maybe they've taken away a lot of cooling stuff from the side pods, and so they've been able to shrink them a little bit more, and they've moved it a little bit more central perhaps to allow these inlets to work well. But that's the kind of top end there, but I can't really say too much else about that, to be honest. We move on to this side of the car, which you can really get a good look at the livery now in real close detail. It's a very nice one-off little shakedown livery, I must admit, and a nice timing there with the hearts of Valentine's Day. But yeah, so we look through, plenty to look through here. You can see a very complex-looking mid-area for Alfa Romeo compared to Sauber's car last year. Obviously, you can see the evolution of the one singular long upright they had last year, and the kind of 2-pronged attachment. They kind of evolved that and shaped that a little bit differently. This one coming off the main main plane end plate on the side pod with a little winglet right here to also try and toss up some air towards, I suspect, towards because if it tosses up, basically, eventually it will get down towards the rear end where the diffuser is and also the rear wing, and just affecting flow in that regard. This is the inlet of the side pod there, so you can see quite small it looks like, and they've got quite a nice undercut, very nice undercut belly for a lot of air to pass through underneath there. And the actual contouring of the side pod there, it does look pretty sleek. They could have gone maybe a little bit sleeker in so compared to the team like Red Bull, but it is still looking very, very sleek and a lot more tighter than last year. Last year very much was quite big in comparison, so they've really suckered in these side pods now and really made that extra step of trying to get good airflow towards the back end of the car. You've got the actual barge board itself with plenty of slot gaps and slits and sideways winglets also coming off, and some dagger approaches a la kind of Mercedes, Toro Rosso, that dagger style approach on the floor there. And they've also got a Ferrari style wing on either side of the chassis right here that you will be able to see from the T-cam, I guess, on board of the Alfa Romeo this year. We saw that a lot last year with the Ferrari and also the Red Bull in a way, and so they've gone for that winglet there, which is facing downwards, so I think that's purely really just to chuck air into the side pod inlet and making sure that that works as efficiently as possible. And of course, you know, around this area, because they can't do any more with the barge board area, that the air is pretty much free to be affected, so they may as well try and chuck it down towards the side pod inlet. From this angle, you can see again the two attachment of the mirror. Here's one, and then there's two just attaching simply to the very top face where the winglet is. You can't really see it due to the blending of the kind of camo colors, but it is just right there. So a really nice, interesting mid-area compared to last year. They made that step forward again for 2019, which is good to see. And actually, on an aesthetics note, good to see that they've got Singer Beer is now a new sponsor for the Alfa Romeo team, so maybe a little bit more funding on that side of things for the sponsorship. If you look on the rear end, then they've got those McLaren-inspired danglings over the cutting and the drag and efficiency forks and spikes, I guess you could say, or overhangs on the rear wing once it creases inwards. And then they've got the usual streaks bleeding air down towards that diffuser there, trying to make that entire area work as efficiently as possible. They've also got these very chunky rear suspensions that I've actually not noted yet, but you can see actually it gets very, very large. And I'm guessing that's purely for aerodynamics, actually trying to create that shape, that bulk shape, trying to get some air, you know, getting curved over the surface, maybe downwards, and trying to get this suction, because the best suction and vacuum seal they can get between the rear wing and the rear tire, the better the diffuser is going to work in this area of the car. And then they've gone for that same approach as the Haas, and I would suspect Ferrari are going to have this approach, the two wastegates on top, stacked on top of the main exhaust exit, trying to get a bit of blowing and hot air on the underneath side of the rear wing. And they've gone for the same approach that Haas have got with the two kind of cat arms, you know, connecting the rear wing either side of the exhaust there. So interesting to see. I would not be surprised if Ferrari have that exact same method on their exhaust tomorrow when the car launches. And then back to the side pod area, just a different angle. You can see the one attachment of the upright over here. There is the small little winglet with the end plate facing upwards. This tiny little wing on this upright. Then the way this second upright kind of bleeds out of the first main one there, and you can see the undercut they've created. Not so dramatic compared to other teams, but still quite a fairly bigger undercut they've got on this side pod compared to last year. So they made that step forward there. And so far, they're the only team that I've seen with a winglet, with the winglet on the halo, and a small little one on the bottom, it looks like, but a major one on the very top face. I've not seen any other team yet launch with a winglet on the halo itself. Mercedes have a bit of a shrouding because their halo this year is silver to match the car rather than black carbon fiber. But yeah, Alfa Romeo, the only team so far that I've seen with actual proper extruding winglet so far on the halo edge. And once again, you can see the two-pronged attachment of the mirrors and a bit of a good look at the pitot tube on the very top of the chassis face. And then finally on the very front, just here, a nice angle, you can see that very unique front wing. Literally no flaps to be seen on here. Literally the air will pass straight through there. Still very unique way. And I'm still really just smiling at the innovation that the team have brought to it. And finally, we're going to look at another side view here just to get another good look at a few little bits and bobs. Once again, a nice side angle of that very interesting front wing. You've got the massive S-stock there on the front of the nose cone there of the Alfa Romeo team. And then you can see the turning vanes slightly here connecting on from the front face, kind of blending in from the front face in a way. So no snowplow kind of going on for the Alfa Romeo team, but turning vanes obviously underneath the suspension arms that are kind of a bit more molded into the nose cone rather than just being extruded outwards. Then you get another look at the kind of bargeboard arrangement, the inlet there, and then another kind of look at the geometry of the actual side itself. And you can see actually the back end of the car, the Coke bottle shape, is actually very, very sucking in there. So they've done a good job actually from this angle to sucker in the Coke bottle shape. And then you can see again the detailing of the front wing mounting, the rear wing mountings, I should say, the double stacked wastegates on top of the main exhaust, the kind of McLaren inspired rear wing appendages, and then again those massive and four-pronged inlets for the engine itself. So that has been the Alfa Romeo racing car then, the shakedown. Obviously we'll see it in all its glory in the colours on Monday. Like I said, I'll actually be attending that thanks to being invited out by the actual team themselves. So looking forward to that. If they happen to be watching, I thank them for the invite. I'm looking forward to seeing the car in the full colours. I'm sure it'll be looking very, very sweet indeed. But guys, if you have enjoyed this aerodynamic analysis of the Alfa Romeo Racing Challenger for 2019, then be sure to hit that like button. Let me know your thought in the comments below of the new Alfa Romeo Challenger. And if you are new around here, to get subscribed for weekly full-on content, of course, get subscribed for the Ferrari video tomorrow. But a surprise Alfa Romeo video then today. I didn't think I'd be making this video, but they did the shakedown. People got some photos, and it's I'm very, very happy about that because this is looking like a very aggressive and very cool and different looking car. I like the step up they're trying to make for this year, and hopefully this could be a car that takes Raikkonen and Giovinazzi to fighting for 4th place in the Constructors perhaps. But till then, guys, till my next video, hope you enjoy the rest of the day, and goodbye.